This video uses AI-assisted historical illustrations, narration voice, music, and editing. The images are symbolic educational visualizations, rather than documentary footage or exact reconstructions. We usually assume that a person first develops a private self and then uses communication to express it. George Herbert Mead asked us to reverse that assumption. What if communication does not merely reveal who we are? What if interacting with other people is part of the process through which we build ourselves? George Herbert Mead lived from 1863 to 1931 and spent most of his academic career at the University of Chicago. He worked in a city transformed by industrial growth, immigration, labor conflict, and reform. As an American pragmatist, Mead wanted philosophy to explain human action within the practical and social world. Mead starts by flipping the usual idea of communication. Communication is not just a channel where fully formed individuals exchange their private thoughts. Instead, the mind and the self are created through taking part in social interactions. His lectures, later collected in Mind, Self, and Society after his death, look at human experience from the viewpoint of communication and social action. Mead begins not with an isolated speaker, but with what he calls a social act. A handshake, for example, is not contained in one person's movement. Its meaning develops through the other person's recognition and response. Communication is therefore not one action followed by another. It is coordinated participation in a larger process. For Mead, meaning is not a private object hidden inside a speaker's intention. A gesture becomes meaningful through the response it calls forth within social interaction. The same movement may invite friendship, request attention, or create confusion. To understand a message, we must examine the relationship among gesture, response, and situation. Human communication becomes special when words and gestures work as meaningful symbols. If someone shouts "fire," the speaker already knows how people will react, and the speaker can also feel the same meaning themselves. Language works because people share a common pattern of response and can recognize what others are likely to do when they hear certain words. Mead says that meaningful communication requires taking the role of the other. Before we speak, we try to imagine how the other person will hear our words. Teachers think about what students already know. Speakers try to guess what doubts the audience might have. Friends pause to consider how a joke might sound to someone else. Communication works because we can look at our own actions from another person's point of view. Role-taking does more than make persuasion better. It lets us become an audience for our own communication. We hear our words as others might hear them, and we adjust what we say in response. For Mead, this ability to reflect on ourselves is a key part of self-consciousness. The self emerges when a person can look at themselves as an object of reflection. Mead uses children's play and organized games to show how social perspective develops. In simple play, a child briefly takes on one role, like a parent, a teacher, or a doctor. But in a game, the child has to understand several connected roles and follow shared rules with others. As this ability grows, communication involves not just one other person, but a whole community of expectations. As people learn many connected roles, they develop what Mead calls the generalized other. This means they gain an organized sense of what their community expects. We wait our turn, cite our sources, follow professional norms, and obey public rules, even when no one is watching us. In this way, society becomes part of how we monitor and guide our own communication. Mead explains the self in two parts, the me and the I. The me is made up of the organized attitudes and expectations we learn from others. The I is our active response to those expectations. It can accept them, change them, resist them, or transform them in creative ways. Through this process, social communication creates both continuity and new possibilities. From this view, thinking is not separate from communication. Our inner reflection grows out of the social exchanges we learn to carry inside ourselves. We imagine possible words, expect certain replies, revise our arguments, and respond internally before speaking. The mind is not a sealed private room. It keeps the basic shape of social conversation within it. Mead's theory doesn't mean that society simply programs passive people. Social expectations shape the me, but the I can respond in different ways. It can follow those expectations, change them, resist them, or create something new. Because of this, every conversation holds two possibilities: repeating the existing social order or responding in a new way. Communication keeps society stable, but it also opens the door for social change. Mead died long before social media, but his ideas still help us understand digital identity. Online, we show parts of ourselves, watch how others react, and adjust how we communicate in the future. The audience we imagine might include friends, employers, strangers, or even whole communities. Likes, comments, and even silence act as social responses that make users continually rethink who they are. AI adds a new question to Mead's theory. When people repeatedly interact with a system trained on human language, does that interaction become part of their inner conversation? AI does not take part in society the way humans do, but its replies can still shape how people choose their words, make judgments, and present themselves. Mead's framework helps us ask what kinds of interaction help form a self. Mead's lasting insight is that communication does more than move information between separate minds. Through gestures, shared symbols, role-taking, and social responses, we learn to see ourselves from the outside. The self is not completely private, but it is also not mechanically controlled by society. It is something we continually create and maintain through communication. Mead reminds us that communication isn't something added on to a fully formed individual. It is part of how mind, identity, and social life grow and take shape. Detailed information about the references is available in the description. Thank you for watching.